Hello and welcome to ABC News. I'm Miriam Korowa. There are signs a rescue operation to free 12 boys and their soccer coach trapped in a cave in Thailand is either imminent or underway. Ambulances have arrived at the scene and the media has been pushed back from the area. ABC journalist Anne Barker joins us now live. And Anne, is it fair to say that these signs of activity are an indication that the rescue effort there is ramping up?
Absolutely, Miriam. They haven't confirmed to us that the rescue has begun, and it may be that we don't actually hear that it has started or even is progressing until it's finished, until there's news to tell us, because remember it will take several hours for these boys to come from the cavity 4 kilometres inside the cave back to the entrance. But since very early light this morning, this place has been absolutely frantic with activity. There's been a string of ambulances going in. We could see when we first arrived, the mountain above the cave was shrouded in mist. There has been very heavy rainfall overnight, and that possibly is what has perhaps brought forward this rescue if they are indeed if it is indeed underway. The media are now being evacuated from the area in front of the cave site, about 500 metres up the road from here. We had until about 9 o'clock local time, which is now in fact to get our gear and move down the hill. Clearly that's to make sure that the road is cleared. There are so many media, so many cameras there that it has been blocking a lot of routes. There is only one road into this area. So if and when they bring the first boys out of the cave, if anything has gone wrong, obviously ambulances will be on standby. I did see reports that there were as many as 10, and hopefully, of course, they won't be needed because we have been told the boys are in reasonable health. But clearly it's a precaution in case something goes wrong on that journey through the flooded channels.
And timing, of course, will be critical. You mentioned there ongoing rainfall in the region there overnight. Monitoring of oxygen levels, is there any sense of where that's at?
We've heard nothing at all about that today, but certainly yesterday we were told that was a major fear. The fact that oxygen levels in the last few days, not just in the cavity where the boys have been held or have been trapped, but also in the outer chambers where rescue workers have been storing their gear, putting air tanks and so on, and supplies and food and medicine. The oxygen had dropped at least to 15%, where it should be 21%, and we were told that if it dropped to even 13%, that could become quite dangerous. At the same time, carbon dioxide levels were going up, and that too, if it was to get into the bloodstream, then that can be quite fatal.
And of course the danger of the rescue efforts there underscored by that previous death, but also a separate accident that has happened there on the mountain.
There was an accident last night. Late last night we heard that a car with 4 volunteer rescue workers who are on the mountain above the cave had somehow driven over a cliff or a ravine, and one of them was seriously injured. The 3 others, I gather, had only light or no injuries. Fortunately, no one was killed, but it does show just the difficulty of the terrain here, not just the cave itself, but there are dangers even above. And there have been hundreds of rescue workers swarming over the hillside in the last few days, desperately trying to find any kind of way down or a place where they could drill a shaft into the cave that might allow them to extract the boys and the coach through a hole up to the surface, rather than forcing them to go through the flooded channels inside, where of course they've been learning in the last few days to use scuba tanks and scuba masks. They've been learning how to breathe through those masks underwater. Just yesterday we were told they weren't ready, they weren't clearly confident enough to try a rescue already, and so they were taking advantage of the relatively dry weather and putting the rescue off in the hope that they could just give the boys more time to familiarise themselves with scuba diving gear and build the confidence they will need to embark on that 4 kilometre underground journey led by some of the world's best cave divers.
Have authorities there been able to give any indication of how long a rescue operation might in fact take, given the complexity of the conditions there and the number of people who they need to rescue from that cave?
We've had no more detail in the last day or so of just how many hours it might take, but certainly we have been told it's a 12-hour round trip even for an experienced diver, 5 or 6 hours in, 5 or 6 hours back, with several points along the way where there's enough air pockets and staging posts where they can refuel their tanks. Originally the plan was perhaps to bring one of the strongest or oldest boys out first and then see how that went before they took the others. But with heavy rains falling overnight and forecast for later today, the weather is definitely deteriorating. It's quite possible that they will decide they need to bring them out as one group but stagger them over time. So that would take, you would presume, at least 6 hours from beginning to end. But because these are boys as young as 11 who have only learnt scuba diving in the last week or so, then I imagine it could take much longer than that.
Keeping us up to date there with all the details, our reporter Anne Barker at Chiang Rai in Thailand.
The young soccer players trapped deep in a cave in Thailand have written to their families urging them not to worry. It's small comfort to those watching from the outside as the rescue operation is delayed again in increasingly treacherous conditions. The ABC's Anne Barker reports from outside the cave complex in Chiang Rai.
Since the beginning of this emergency, water has been the enemy. And the monsoon is edging closer, potentially bringing enough rain to fill the cave and make a rescue mission impossible. But now there's a new challenge, not enough fresh air. Divers have had to deliver air cylinders to the chamber where the boys and their coach are sheltering.
If the oxygen level drops below 13%, it can be life-threatening for the kids, so we need to find other options right away.
And it's not just this part of the cave. In the main staging area closer to the entrance, there's been so much activity that oxygen is falling and carbon dioxide rising. Rescue coordinators are trying to reduce the number of people working in the parts of the cave where air quality is at risk.
Every volunteer cave diver reaches their limit at Chamber 3. They cannot go further than that.
The falling oxygen levels have added even greater urgency to this operation, but preparing the boys to swim and dive their way out is taking time, and for now that lack of readiness is a bigger risk than the rain.
Because the boy is not suitable, they cannot dive at this time.
The Thai Navy SEALs released copies of letters the boys have written to their parents. All send love and reassurance to their families. Don't be worried, I'm happy being here inside. The Navy SEALs have taken good care of us. The air is a little cold, but don't worry, although don't forget to set up my birthday party. If we get out, Mum and Dad, please take me out for some pork pan barbecue. And from the coach who led them into the cave, I promise I'll care for the kids as best as possible. I want to say thanks for all the support, and I want to apologise to the parents. Above the cave, rescue teams have been searching for other ways to get in. They've found crevices and wells, and they've also drilled as deep as 400 metres into the rock. But even without the thick jungle hampering their efforts, it's still a technical challenge. They haven't been able to get close to the trapped boys from the top of the cave, so diving out remains the preferred option. The forbidding nature of this cave means every escape route is tricky. The boys and their coach are in a chamber at least 600 metres below the surface. Getting them out will mean a 4-kilometre journey through a dangerous labyrinth. The most challenging section requires a dive in completely flooded areas from Pattaya Beach to a chamber where a rescue centre has been set up. From there, it's hoped they can walk out of the cave. The death of a former Navy SEAL yesterday has underlined the danger. Colleagues paid tribute to Saman Gunan as his body left Chiang Rai. A week ago, he'd flown in using his holiday to return to his old job. Every minute now is precious. Draining is continuing to reduce the amount of diving the boys could face, trying to widen small gaps to allow them to get through with unfamiliar diving gear, and hopefully ending the mission without further loss of life.
And Anne Barker joins us now from Chiang Rai. And with the dangers building by the hour, is there any time frame for this attempted rescue?
No, Jeremy. They said last night that the boys in the cave were not ready to take a chance with the scuba gear, and that's why they were taking another day. Now, that could change also if there were monsoonal rains and depending how heavy those rains were. But we've actually had no rain at all here today, and if that continues to be the case tomorrow and they can control the oxygen levels inside the cave, there's a good chance, I think, that they might take yet another day just to give the boys that extra time to familiarise themselves with the scuba equipment.
Anne Barker, thank you.